Go back to those waiter days. What was life like back then when you were living in Hell's Kitchen and working here?
It was great. It was, people sometimes ask about, my struggles, those years of struggling, and I'm like, I was just a single, dumb guy that with no responsibilities. I got to do theater a lot of the time, and when I wasn't doing theater, I was, in a great place like this, getting a free dinner every shift, and hanging out and being in New York City and soaking it all up. So it was a fantastic time. I got a little nervous sometimes walking home to whichever lousy sublet I was living in Hell's Kitchen at the time from different friends of mine, with a pocket full of cash tips in Hell's Kitchen in the 80s. It was a little rough.
Scary.
A little rough.
Yeah.
So I tried to look a little extra like, maybe you don't want to mess with me at 1 a.m., walking home after my shift. But yeah, nothing bad ever happened.
That's great. It worked.
Yeah.
You did look tough.
I acted like I was tough, which is one of the things I'm capable of doing.
Right. Exactly. That brings us back to the Westies. Were you a good waiter?
You know what? Not very good. I worked hard. I was pleasant, I tried to be charming. I was not organized. I would make 6 trips to get, one different, water, boom, here's water. Oh, bread, boom, here's, So this would have taken me like 5 trips to set up, yeah. And the butter would already be melting by the time I got it here.
Isn't it funny that someone who's so organized and can memorize lines can't do this? It's weird how the brain works.
It's a very different thing, and how the brain doesn't work. Yeah.
Do you think that those years, I always say, I waited tables, and I always say I think everyone should wait tables at some point in their lives.
It's a great experience. Yeah. Yeah, waiting tables is a valuable, real-world experience.
What do you think you learned?
Patience, work ethic. I mean, any kind of job. I was mowing lawns when I was a kid, and bussing tables, before, when I was in high school in the summers, and delivering pizza, this and that. I think, any kind of a service industry job teaches you how to deal with people, a wide array of people, Most of your customers are very pleasant. Some of them are very demanding. Some of them are unpleasant, and you got to go with the flow.
It's very true. Good character studies.
Yeah.
Go back to the beginning. You were born in Detroit and then moved to Ohio around age 10-ish?
10, yeah, I think it was 10, maybe 11. My dad was taught public school general music and junior high. Conducted the choir, had church choir jobs in the community chorus, and then got a job at Ohio State. And my grandparents, my mother's parents, lived very near us in Michigan, and when my dad got the college job, which of course is a more fulfilling thing for a guy who wants to be a music teacher and make the best music he can as a choir conductor, but he actually took a slight cut in pay to start as a entry-level associate professor, and took my mother away from her parents. And I didn't know any of this at the time, but my grandfather was like, "Why are you taking my grandchildren away and my daughter so you can make less money?" It was a whole thing there. So every summer we'd go and visit back up in Detroit, and then we'd also visit my dad's family on the farm in Illinois, and living in the burbs of Columbus when he taught at the Ohio State University.
What do you think growing up in the Midwest, what kind of effect did growing up in the Midwest have on you?
I mean, I'm a Midwest snob, I guess, which is kind of a reverse snob, right? The flyover states, right? We're the ones that the elites on the coast, look down on, literally. But my mom's from the south side of Chicago, and my dad grew up on a farm. I just said Chicago. And my dad grew up on a farm in west central Illinois, so obviously the Midwest roots run deep. My father was always an academic. My mother, once my little brother was in kindergarten and she could resume a full life of having a career and motherhood, she was in arts administration and this and that for many years. And then when I was 17 and got out of high school a year early because I was so smart.
Why did
It
you?
was a combination of, I was a good test taker, really good test taker. So when we were juniors and we were taking the ACT, the SAT and all that, I was like, very good scores, because not that I was that smart or had that much actual knowledge. I could always suss out tests really well. And I got good grades despite the fact that I went from being a very jock-centered kid to blowing out my knees and then becoming a full-on hippie, turn on, tune in, drop out kind of pain in the posterior to the high school administration, who were happy to see me go because Ohio University started an early admissions program. The start of the year that my pal Randy and I were juniors, and we had both applied to OU just because, you're just applying to colleges in Ohio, and they said, hey, if you want to skip your senior year of high school, you can come here now, like barely 17, not a brain in our heads. And as long as your high school agrees to, give you your diploma after your freshman year, then, and we were like, yeah, sign us up. And our high school was like, yeah, great, bye. And we went, and after 2 quarters there, I decided I actually did like choirs and music and classical music, and maybe I did want to follow in my dad's footsteps after all, and I transferred up to Ohio State, and I thought I'd be able to go to my high school commencement, and they said, no, you broke the rules. You have to do this at Ohio University. So I never graduated from I'm a high school dropout, but actually a doctor of humane letters, my honorary degree from an actual Bachelor of Music degree, and then an honorary doctorate of humane letters from University of Montana, where my dad ended up and where my sister and brother and I all graduated.
That's great.
Yeah.
So
Take that, Worthington High School. Sorry, go Cardinals.
So if your first love was clearly music, at least when you figured out what you wanted to do.
Yeah.
So then how'd you end up in acting?
I was doing an opera. I was doing my one professional opera. I took a semester off at University of Montana because I got hired, I don't know how, to play Figaro in The Marriage of Figaro with the Great Falls Opera Company, the Great Falls Symphony, and they brought in pros, like legit pros from Seattle Opera and regional opera companies. When I came back, my little brother was in a community theater production of Oliver, directed by our old pal Jim Caron. Hi, Jim. And they had it's community theater, right? So some guy that went, yeah, I'll be in community theater, was playing the knife grinder in the big Who Will Buy This Beautiful Morning sequence. And he decided, yeah, it's not for me. So he just flaked, and after rehearsal, they said, hey, does anybody know a guy who can sing baritone and be in the chorus and sing a few? And my brother goes, yeah, my brother, yeah, sure, So I ended up doing that, and just fell in love with the dramatic impact of musical theater doing that show. And when the set was being struck, and I was helping out with all of that, taking a break in Jim's office, literally feet up on the desk, both of us smoking cigarettes, because it's 19 whatever it was, 77, and his phone rings, and he, oh, yeah, hello, oh, hi, Don, I don't know, oh, you know what, maybe I'm looking at him right now, I'll call you back, and they were looking for a music director and actor at the Big Fork Summer Playhouse in Big Fork, Montana. Jim was directing shows up there that summer, and he asked me if I wanted to go do that, and I said, yeah, I love this stuff. So that was the transition, and I was so bad because I was coming from this, because I was nervous. I mean, almost all young performers are nervous, and And my first, this is such a long story. Oh my God.
But
Do we need to like go to a commercial at this point? I- so, so my first rehearsal with Jim playing the lead in Brigadoon, you know, I walk out with my script and I read the first line, which is two Americans lost in the Scottish Highlands, you know. Here, let me see that map. And Jim goes, okay. And we got the little speech about this is not opera. This is more naturalistic, and you know, and so, you know, for the rest of the summer, I was like, yeah, let me see that map. Fiona, I love you. I was trying to be, you know,
Brando.
yeah. Unfortunately, over the years, found how to, you know, make it work for me in the in-between land, in between those two extremes.
You certainly did. There,
With a lot of great direction, especially early on in my career. So many wonderful, like, age-appropriate directors, starting with Jim Karen and Todd Peters and you know, John Kaufman out in Seattle and Jerry Zaks here on Broadway. So many, you know, if you listen, you learn.
that's a very good point. One that I try to tell my kids: listen and learn. Right? There's, I don't want to. I'm going to lead you into this and see if you follow me. Have you had any of those moments where you think this is going to be the worst thing that ever happened to me, and it ends up being the best thing?
Yeah. Yes. One leaps out. It was my second Broadway show. There was this kid from Scarsdale named Aaron Sorkin who had a play called A Few Good Men. And in my Monday night poker game, one of the guys, my pal Jeff Brooks, had just seen that play. And he says, "Oh my God," he said, I just saw a play and there's a part for you. I mean, you know, someday in regional theater when this play is, you know, he says, because that was the world we were all in, really. And then several months later, I get an audition to replace the understudy for the Colonel and the Doctor. It's a character who's not in the movie, but it's a lovely little two-scene part in the play, well into their run. And Ron Perlman had replaced Stephen Lang as the Colonel. Brad Whitford had replaced as Lieutenant Caffey. Great cast, fantastic production. And of course, all of us who did the play, you know, think the play is
Better than the movie.
you know. And you know, so I did what you do on Broadway, and you learn your little part. And I had 0 lines, but I was standing on stage a lot and moving furniture. And then every Thursday you have an understudy rehearsal with the stage manager and all the understudies, and I learned the Doctor scenes, learned the Colonel scenes. Ron came to my dressing room and said, "Hey, if you're ready, I'm going to take a break and go," because his life was in California and he wanted to take a long weekend. And I was, you know, equal parts thrilled and terrified. And I said, "Yeah, I'm ready." And I went on and played the Colonel with Brad Whitford. Such a rock of support, you know, as I was sweating bullets and, you know, just high on adrenaline. And it was fantastic. It was still on the handful of the most rewarding experiences I've had as an actor in my life. The right guy, right place, right time, right cast, right everything.
Can totally see you as Colonel Jessup.
It was maybe the most in it I've ever been on stage. It was fantastic. And then a couple of months later, Ron's contract was up, and it was time to have a new actor play the Colonel. And you know, Aaron had seen me do it, and had been, you know, very kind and moved by what I brought to it. But none of the producers had seen it. And this was all the old school Schubert, Schoenfeld, all the old school Broadway guys, and who are lovely. And so they had to replace the Colonel. It was late in the run, and everybody's like, "Well, you know, this
JK.
guy maybe, you know." I auditioned again for the producers, and you know, they said it was great, and then they hired a TV guy, because that's, you know, you got to sell tickets, and I was like so naive about the way all of this works, you know, and heartbroken, like heartbroken, so angry, and went to my agent's office the next day, and I was in terrible shape. I said, I can't stay there. I can't stay there and stand at attention and parade rest and watch somebody else do this part of a lifetime. I can't do it. Get me anything. And they were looking to replace Captain Hook in a national tour Broadway revival of Peter Pan with Kathy Rigby, and they asked me to do it. Not even sure if I even auditioned. It might have been the first time I did an audition. And I went to see the show, and I was like, this was great. It was a really fun production. So I took the demotion from colonel to captain, and went on the road, like still dragging my tail between my legs, and sad and bitter. And then 2 months into that tour, this new beautiful little young actress, dancer, singer joined the cast to play Tiger Lily, and we're going to be celebrating our 30th anniversary. So
That is so beautiful.
it has a pretty good ending.
It sure does. And it sure shows you that, like, the moment that you think is the worst may turn out to be the best.
1,000%.
Yeah. I know your kids were a little bit younger when you did Juno. You weren't the father of a teenager at that point. But do you think being a dad helped you with that role?
100%. I mean, I was always a 50-year-old character actor waiting to happen, you know, even when I was in my 20s, you know.
Seriously?
I mean, I lost my hair, started going when I was doing summer theater in Big Fork when I was 21, 22. It's like the signs were there.
So
I finally had to cut it, by the way, from my Greg Allman hair, which I was so vain about when I
But
started
when it
doing
started to
theater.
go, yeah?
Well, no, just to do theater.
Oh, to do theater,
But then,
gotcha.
But then it's, my mother, thank you, Mom. She tried to convince me when my hair was long, and my parents were, believe me, my parents were like very tolerant, very liberal, like progressive people. But nobody loves seeing their kids' hair just like go completely crazy. And about the time that it was super long, when I was in college, there were signs, you know, that it wasn't going to be there a lot longer. And my mother was like, I think maybe the length of your hair is like too heavy, and it's pulling your hair out. I'm like, nice try, Mom. But I did have to get it. I had to get it cut to play Tommy Albright in Brigadoon.
Ah.
But yeah. So anyway, yes, I was. You know, the beauty of the Big Fork Summer Playhouse, which we did 4 musicals in rep, was you're the lead one night, you're the third guy from the left in the chorus the next night, and then you're some goofy character part, you know, another night. So I really I learned so much there. And I had already been playing people's dads for a while. And then, yeah, when Juno came along, it was so, well, first of all, thank you, Jason Reitman. It was such a fantastic experience for all of us, and a great opportunity for me to play Mac, and to really, that's the first one that I really recall, you know, the kind of empathy that parenthood brings out in us, that it was just so natural to feel, you know, the big scene where Juno, you know, and her friend confess to the parents, you know, on the page really could have been interpreted in such a variety of ways, you know, with the exact same words, the brilliant Diablo Cody words. But to me, it was such a I mean, anger wasn't part of the equation until after they left the room, and I make the comment about punching Paulie Bleecker. It was just heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking for a dad to see his 16-year-old kid having to deal with such an adult reality, you know. So I hadn't experienced adolescence yet from a fatherhood point of view, but it absolutely, being a father has informed everything I've done since then in my work and in life.
Do you think you were married at what, 36 and became a dad at 40?
No, we met, I was 36 when Michelle and I met, and she was 24. Which is sort of now, as my kids are, you know, in their 20s, I'm like, and that's the maximum. That more than that is bad.
It's bad,
Yeah,
yes. You
but
know what's
that's
funny?
okay.
Same age difference of me and my husband.
Yeah?
I think it's perfect.
It's a beautiful thing.
But you waited a while to get married. You waited a
Well,
while
I was
to have
young
kids.
and stupid.
Yeah?
I mean, I was 36 going on 19 when I met Michelle, and she was a mature, self-sufficient 24-year-old adult woman, you know. We had our ins and outs and our ups and downs. We didn't get married until I was 41, and Joe was born when I was 43.
Oh, wow.
So, I mean, we were recognized once when Olivia was about, around Juno time, actually. Olivia was probably, 6. My parents were visiting in LA. So Michelle and I and the kids and my parents were going to a mall to see a movie. Some nice lady went, oh, I saw you in the, whatever it was, and, having a little chat. And my parents are glowing with pride over there. And she looks down at Olivia and she goes, your grandpa's famous. And Olivia goes, he's my dad. Thank you.
The wisdom that comes with
Yes,
waiting, right?
Yes, yes. And then people, people thinking that Michelle might be my niece or my daughter or something as we're, out and about in public.
So you've always played a little older. That's okay.
Well, yeah, up until now. Now I'm playing sort of the age that I am. I'm trying to think the last time a character I played actually said his age. I mean, now people are, ever since all the trophies 10 or 11 years ago, people will throw scripts at me that are like, he's a 52-year-old, this and that. And I'm like, nope, no, I'm not.
And you'll turn those down?
I'm like, well, it's sort of a pet peeve of mine as an audience and as an actor to see, people just trying to hang on to their youth. And obviously, like I said, I was, I never got by on my boyish good looks in my career. So, it's easy for me to say, no, I'm not going to try to play a guy who's 25 years younger than I am. It doesn't make sense. If the character could be 71 years old, let's talk about it, but I'm not going to, what are you going to do? And no, you may not do computer magic.
The AI
on
thing,
this.
yes. No, not happening.
No, no.
So let's talk about that film that got you all the trophies. How life-changing was Whiplash?
Career changing, 1,000,000%. It was, and I was already really happy with where I was.
You were doing fine.
Yeah, I had done The Closer, for 7 years in LA and lots of films, Juno, I was in Jason's first film, Thank You for Smoking. I was in every Jason Wright movie.
Every Jason Wright movie, yeah.
A cameo or something. It was Jason who sent the script for Whiplash. And he and Helen Estabrook had been talking to Damien about possible casting for Fletcher, and they suggested me, and Damien went, yeah, I like that idea, and we had a meeting, and the whole experience was, from getting that email from Jason and going, just already being excited, and I saw genius on the page, and I thought, I hope this kid that nobody ever heard of, who's a year or two out of film school, can direct. And then we did the short film shortly after that for zero money in 3 days. And they took it to Sundance, and I was in LA doing a sitcom, so it didn't go to Sundance, and it won all the things and got all the funding to shoot the feature. And 16 months later, I think, where Miles and I are shooting, a piece of cinema art that we'll all always be proud of, and it was a fantastic experience. Miles is so good in that movie, and it was so hard for him to tame his alpha male, you know, and be the one that I berate, and you know,
What were you guys like between takes?
total idiots, you know, talking sports and you know, giving each other a hard time, and you know, Miles just being Miles and me being my dumbass self.
You did not stay in character.
We did not, and it. I mean, sometimes I do. Sometimes I do more and less. For me, oftentimes it goes hand in hand with like having to do an accent or a dialect. That it's more difficult to jump back and forth all the time. But Fletcher was just, you know, a guy from my background, you know, so there was no reason to impose any kind of, you know, speech, dialect or accent or anything different with him. And I didn't want to live in that place of you know, anger and be that guy.
That makes sense.
Having said that, everything Fletcher does in the movie, everything Fletcher does in his life is motivated by the intensity of his love for jazz music and his overarching need to create perfection, which, as we know, humans do not create in jazz music. And if you're in the way of that, you'll get hurt.
You'll get hurt. But there you go. It's like finding the humanity, like we were talking about the Westies, and trying to find that
Right.
in. What's
Yeah.
the humanity? What's the love? Finding
Yeah.
the way in with
Yeah.
those kind of evil characters. I want to talk just briefly about your Oscars speech. When you said, please call your mom, call your dad. Do people thank you for that?
They do. Yeah. It was spur of the moment in that I knew I wanted to talk about family. I knew I wanted to first talk about my wife and thank her. Talked about her, talked about our kids who were up in the balcony, which took me to motherhood, which took me to call your mom, and call your dad, call your mom, call your dad, call your parents. Yeah, and I heard, I mean, so many stories of like people who were estranged, and because some, you know, random bald white guy on a stage, you know, said call your mom, they called their mom or they called their dad, or and you know, like really dramatic stories of reconciliations because I said that.
We have to talk Spider-Man for just a moment.
Sure.
What is the key to J. Jonah Jameson?
Thank you, Sam Raimi. That was, I had done 2 movies in a row with Sam, For Love of the Game and The Gift, which is, I think, an underrated and maybe underseen gem of a movie. And during The Gift, the announcement came out that Sam was directing this Spider-Man. They're going to make a movie of Spider-Man, you know? I mean, this was the beginning of Marvel, really, you know? And, you know, friends are calling and saying, hey, you talk to Sam, you should play the bad guy, you know, because I play a lot of bad guys. And I never did talk to Sam about, hey, can I be in your next movie too? You know, I never
You don't like doing
felt
that.
comfortable, no. But Sam, you know, knew that he wanted me to play Jameson. Of course, he had to convince, you know, it's a lot of money at stake, so the powers that be had to sign off on it. So I, you know, I auditioned, as I always did. So I did, they did the scenes, including the scene where the Green Goblin, like, chokes me and lifts me up, you know, up into the air, and I'm, you know, trying to somehow play that. Whatever, it obviously, and this was the first time I was aware of the power of the fanboy, you know, or fan person world,
Oh,
right,
yeah.
on the internet, because I went to that audition in the morning, did the audition, you know. Later that afternoon, I'm at Gray Advertising, where my wonderful Uncle Dave used to work, who I camped with when I moved here. Thanks, Dave and Connie. And I'm auditioning for a voiceover at Gray Advertising for whatever it might be. And you go, you sign in, you sit down in the waiting room, you see the usual suspects that you're auditioning with often. The guy comes out to go, okay, JK, you're next. So I'm walking back. And as I walk past this young person in the company, rolls out in his desk chair, goes, JK, congratulations. And I go, thank you for what? And he goes, for what? He goes, J. Jonah Jameson. It was just posted online
Oh gosh.
that I was playing J. Jonah Jameson.
That's how you found out.
And I go and do my voiceover audition, and I finish that, and I get on my bike, literally, and the phone rings, and I get off my bike, and it's my agent, and I go, yeah, I know. That's how I found out I was playing J. Jonah Jameson, which at the time we didn't even know it was going to be obviously you don't know what it's going to be. We thought it was a standalone thing, and then after they made the offer and kind of worked out the deal, then they called my agent back and said, oops, we actually need a 3-picture commitment from your client. So my agent went, oh, interesting. I mean, I just saw this guy as straight off the comic pages, snarling with that big, I wore fake teeth because my teeth, I've since had them straightened, but they were a little crooked at the time, and I wanted to have that big mouthful of, white straight teeth. Obviously the flat top, the the whole thing. And just to have that sort of Preston Sturgis vibe,
Totally worked.
it was super fun.
What do you think the guy waiting tables here back in the 80s would think of what's happened to J.K. Simmons?
We were sitting right over here, standing at the end of the bar one day between the post matinee rush and the pre-evening show rush, smoking cigarettes, as so many of us did, like 4 or 5, maybe 6, waiters and bartender, and just some rare sort of downtime to kind of chat and get to know each other a little better. And what do you do? Oh, I'm an actor. And, I'm a dancer. I want to direct. And this one guy, and we're all, youngish, in our 20s. And this one guy, Regan, it's kind of like his turn, and he goes, I'm a waiter. And we go, yeah, dude. We're all waiters, And he's like, no, this is my career. I like this. I'm a waiter. I want to move. I want to be at a fancy steakhouse. I want to make more money, But this is my career, and it was such a great, sort of back to that Midwest ethic, oh yeah, this is a thing. This is
Right.
People do this and want to be a server, and that's a fulfilling thing to do on a daily basis and get paid for and enjoy your life, So Regan, I hope you're either retired or at the fanciest steakhouse in Manhattan.
Right? When you look at all you've done and all you're doing now and getting ready to do, what do you think?
It's crazy, the good fortune I've had in my career, in my life, more importantly. Before Whiplash, as I said, I was already, so blessed and fortunate to not be auditioning all the time, to be doing good work, to be working with fantastic directors and actors. It's crazy. It's crazy to think back on, the nervous guy at the Big Fork Summer Playhouse being such a terrible actor and starting to learn how to channel what's in here more intelligently. It's crazy, and I'm grateful every day, and trying to enjoy, all of it.